lecture on electrical machine. We'll be starting with our module 3, that is three-phase induction motor. Now, according to the name, you can understand from three-phase induction motor, in order to turn on a three-phase induction motor, we need a three-phase supply. Like in the last sem, we did three-phase transformer. So in a three-phase transformer, we were having a three-phase supply. In a single-phase transformer, we had a single-phase supply. So supply to the induction motor is three-phase. Since we are studying three-phase induction motor over here, supply will be three-phase. Next, why induction? It works on the principle of mutual induction that we already know is the same principle of transformer. The mutual flux which links with the primary coil generated in the primary side links with the secondary side. So by mutual induction, as in transformer, energy was transferred from primary to secondary. Over here also the same process is done using the induction method. Next, it is called a motor. You have already studied DC motor. So what it does? Electrical energy to mechanical energy. So we are studying a motor which will convert electrical energy to mechanical energy, and it will use the process of induction to convert the energy form from the source side to the load side, and it requires a three-phase supply. That's why it is called three-phase induction motor. Yes. Now I have written some very important points about induction motor which you should know preliminarily. Yes, I'll tell you one by one. What is a basic motor? You think about a motor. As you study a DC motor, it should have a, or you think about a motor in general, it should have a static part, means stationary part, and it should have a rotational part. The stator part or the static part or the stationary, whatever you call it, or the field was your magnets, and the rotating part, which was consisting of armature conductors, and it was rotating in the magnetic field. So basically in this motor also we'll have two parts. One is stator and one is rotor. I'll just skip the first point. I'll go to the second point. Stator winding. Okay, stator winding, we have rotor winding. Same thing. Stator for stationary, rotor for rotational. Stator stands for field, which is equivalent in DC motor. Rotor stands for armature in DC motor. Now in an induction motor, in the first point, induction motor requires one supply only. See, it is a single excited AC machine. That is, only one supply is required. That is one single AC source. Now, I think you had a class on alternator also, sir had taken. So maybe
alternator double excited thage,
yes.
DC field the excited thage.
Yes, that is what I am telling you. In alternator, what happens? You have the field windings to be excited from a DC supply, and the rotor is given a three-phase supply, right? So it is a double excited machine. You have two different excitations for your rotor and stator. But over here, only the stator is given the supply. So only one single AC source is required, and the magnetic field generated by the stator, in that the rotor conductors are placed. So it will automatically rotate as force will act upon it. We'll come up to that. So one single supply, you should remember. Two things you have. One is stator winding. Second point, stator winding which is connected directly to AC source. Rotor winding which is receives its energy from the stator by means of induction or transformer action, as I was telling. Now how will you classify your induction motor? Now according to the supply which is given, suppose you think about the DC machine. Okay, I'm just taking the basic part, how you do a classification. If you take about a DC machine, we classify DC machines according to its excitation or supply, or the how the windings, field winding or armature are placed. So what we call it either a series or a shunt or a compound or a separately excited machine. Like this. Similarly, according to excitation or supply, this is my fourth point, we can classify into single phase induction motor and three-phase induction motor. So in this topics which we'll be covering is three-phase induction motor. Single phase induction motor is in module 4. It is also called fractional kilowatt motor because it is available in 0.5 HP, 0.8 HP, so fractional kilowatt. Now, and again, your induction motor, according to fifth point, it can be classified according to its construction also. The rotor construction which is made for the induction motor is of two types. Stator remains the same. One is squirrel cage motor and one other is slip ring induction motor or wound rotor induction motor. I have made a comparison between the two. Later I will show you the pics of these two. You can understand it. Just an overview. You can understand it how it's squirrel cage or induction motor. What is the internal construction? And the induction motor application is everywhere. Maximum, even 90% of the prime movers which are used in the world today employs induction motor. In your fan, you have a single phase induction motor. In your pumps, in your cranes, everywhere they employ a induction motor. So this is a basic introduction of your induction motor. Now let's go to the comparison between a three-phase transformer and a three-phase induction motor. Now, when we take a three-phase transformer and a three-phase induction motor, both requires the same medium of conversion of energy, right? If I talk like this over here, so both requires the method of induction to transfer its energy from the primary side or the stator side to the rotor side. So both will have the same means. So it has a magnetic domain which is common between the two. In a three-phase transformer and three-phase induction motor, a magnetic domain is common between the two. And obviously we'll have an input to that magnetic domain. What is that input? You can easily identify. We need for a motor to transform electrical energy to mechanical. So input will be electrical. If I take a transformer, then also we are giving an electrical energy. It is transferring the power from one level to the other in the other side as a transformer does. So on my input side, which is this arrow over here, should be my input. See, it is entering the system. So my input, it is electrical domain. And that is my energy input. So my energy input will always be in electrical domain. May it be a transformer, may it be a induction motor. Now we'll have we can have two outputs from this magnetic domain. One output is of transformer, because in transformer it is electrical energy. One output will be mechanical energy. So the top one I have given for transformer. So we are getting the output in electrical domain. This is my energy output. And in the below one output I have given mechanical domain. That is my energy output. So this electrical domain to electrical domain conversion is done by a transformer. Electrical domain to mechanical domain done by an induction motor. So this is induction motor. So the same means is being used to transform the energy from one form to another by the transformer and induction motor as a whole. But in induction motor, it is output is in mechanical form. In transformer, we have electrical form. Okay. Next, similarities. I'll just come to similarities. Before that, if I think about a transformer and an induction motor, first thing that comes to my mind is that a transformer has a primary and secondary winding. An induction motor also has a stator winding and a rotor winding. Rotor has conductors, so windings are there. So obviously both are similar. It has two windings, primary, secondary. If you compare with this, you have stator windings and rotor windings. Next, in a transformer, we had studied that those windings, annotate korish na, those windings, dara. এটা অফ করে কি করে?
যে করেছে সেই অফ করতে পারবে।
When we think about transformer, you have a primary winding and a secondary winding. Okay, so when we are having a primary winding, it will have some resistances and leakage reactances. Similarly, in case of a induction motor also, those stator winding and rotor windings will have some internal resistances and leakage reactances that will have some drops over there. So these are two major difference which I can tell you just for now. Then we'll look into some of similarities which we are looking into. Then we'll look into some of them in these slides. So if you look at the first point, primary and secondary windings, and in the induction motor also stator and rotor windings. Okay, I'll skip the 2, 3, 4 because I've said you the fifth point. Resistance and leakage reactances are there in the primary and secondary winding. That R1 and X1, you have studied the equation. V1 is equal to minus E1 plus I1 into R1 plus JX1 as in transformer. Over here also we'll have the same thing. Resistance and leakage reactance of the stator and rotor windings. Okay. Next thing, what we had seen is that a mutual flux is generated by the primary and secondary MMFs combining together. So over here, resultant mutual flux in the transformer is the combined action of primary and secondary MMF. And in the induction motor also same thing, a air gap flux is generated by the combined action of both stator and rotor. I'll come later to why I am calling synchronously rotating air gap flux. Just for now, there will be a air gap flux generated, you should remember, due to combined action of stator and rotor. Next, if we recall about a transformer, my first and second classes, what I taught you. But think about the basics, no need to recall it anything. When transformer was given any supply V1, a counter EMF was generated in the primary of the transformer. That was called your EMF, E1, which was always opposing in nature. Similarly, if you give a supply to the stator winding, a counter EMF will be generated in the stator side, which is stator means if you give a supply, then on the stator side there will be a counter EMF generated, that is E1. So both has a counter EMF generated due to the supply given to the stator windings or the primary windings. And lastly, these are all 5 important points. You have many other points. I have focused on important points only. In a transformer, when you are since your transformer and induction motor both behaves on the nature of Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction and all, Lenz's law. So when we find out we have some losses also in transformer, copper loss, iron loss. In a motor also, you know, there are copper loss and iron loss. And both behavior are almost same, transformer and induction motor, except one is rotating, one is static. Okay, so basically induction motor is called a rotating transformer because of all these similarities and all. So when we are finding the efficiency, we need to find out the copper loss and the iron loss. So we go for either short circuit test or open circuit test. I've written only short circuit test, but on a transformer you can perform open circuit test and short circuit test over here. And in the induction motor also same thing we can perform. We can block the rotor or short circuit the rotor to form up a short circuit test, or we can open circuit the rotor and connect an ammeter and perform the open circuit test to calculate all its equivalent parameters as well as its losses. Okay, these are all the similarities. Now dissimilarities. If you look into the dissimilarities, number 2 is a practical values that had been calculated. In a transformer, to no load current which is obtained from your open circuit test is around 2 to 6% of your full load current, and similarly for an induction motor it is little higher, it is 30 to 50% of the full load current. The first one, you have heard about this type of windings in your machine 1, concentrated windings. So it is wound over the same limb and concentrated in the same place. But in induction motor, what happens to the windings? It is distributed in slots. Only in one place the winding is not placed. It is distributed in slots in the air gap periphery. Okay, so there comes a winding factor. You have heard about pitch factor, distribution factor. Pitch factor into distribution factor gives you winding factor. So I'm not going into detail about that. We know that if the windings are distributed in space, there comes a pitch factor, there comes a distribution factor. For that, there is a winding factor, Kw. But if it is a concentrated, nothing comes over there, that factor doesn't come. So my EMF, of a transformer is root 2 pi f n phi m. Since E1, I have written N1 over here. If it is E2, it will be N2. Induction motor, same EMF equation, since supply is AC. So there will be a factor Kw. So if this voltage E1 on the transformer is 10 volt, on an induction motor, the same voltage will be reduced by a factor Kw. If it is 0.9, it will be a 9 volt. So little bit difference will be there in the EMF, counter EMF generated in the induction motor because of the winding factor Kw. These are very two important differences between induction motor and transformers, and rest all you can observe your books and find out. Okay, I have highlighted only the important points. Now I have defined in since we have studied three-phase induction motor, I'll go into three-phase induction motor only. I'll not classify induction motor in terms of supply, that is single-phase induction motor. So in a three-phase induction motor, we have a stator and a rotor. And we had classified induction motor into squirrel cage one and wound rotor. So those squirrel cage and wound rotor are the basic definitions for your rotor construction. For an induction motor which is stated as squirrel cage or which is stated as wound rotor will have the same shape of your stator or will have the same types of winding in the stator. So stator doesn't change over here. So this is a basic stator over here, this inside one. This outside, what it is called, anybody can tell me? This outside, everybody knows. This outside, this blue color, this should be present.
Casing.
Huh?
Yoke.
Casing.
Yoke, correct. Casing by yoke, correct term is yoke. Yoke is used for your protection. So any machine will have
Casing
your.
bole na?
Casing o bole, but
Casing.
yoke is casing o bole. Yoke is a better term. Okay. Casing o bole. So this outside thing is a yoke. This two are stands on which your motor is kept on, and obviously there should দেখবে তোমাদের ল্যাবে বা কোথাও induction motor গুলো is placed বা any motor is placed on a মানে concrete যাতে ওটা support দেওয়া হয়. If you are placing it on a floor মানে ওটা vibrate হয় তো it will crack. So we place this whole motor on a concrete for safety. See, all the three terminals are coming out from the stator and it can be connected to the supply, three-phase supply. Three-phase supply. Now, if you look at a closer look at the stator, these are the windings which are placed. I'm not going into description about the windings and all. This is how the windings are placed in the stator. Some slots are there, like the slots are there. See, slots are there over here. Over here, windings are placed. And three-phase supply is over here. These connections are actually taken from this. This top part is called your connection box. Yes, 8 wire is actually connected over here, and three-phase supply comes over here and gets connected over here. Now, next going into the rotor. First one rotor is your slip ring induction motor. Okay, or wound rotor induction motor. And next one we'll describe is squirrel cage. Now slip ring you have heard about it. Slip ring commutator you have heard. So that is same thing which was used in your DC generator motor over here also. Using slip ring, we are making the contact through the external resistors or external loads. Slip rings or brushes. The figure 3 is just a representation of a whole figure of your wound rotor induction motor, how it looks like. These three over here, these three are your slip rings in the figure 4. Brushes are not shown over here. These three are your slip rings. This whole thing is your induction motor. This part, this round figure is your yoke. Inside that there is a stator and a rotating part. From that rotor, see, connections are taken out. Connections are taken out and connected to these slip rings. See, if you see you can't see this wire, how these connections are taken out. If you see this fifth figure over here, you can observe, see the rotor windings. 3 phase windings are taken out, connected to 3 slip rings because there are 3 phases, and brushes are used to make it contact with the external resistors. Okay. This connection is done like this. We have 3 phase windings, then that windings are connected to the slip rings. Through the brushes, external contacts are made through the resistors. These resistors are used for many things, we'll discuss it. Generally what we do is these resistors are used for speed control and torque control. Change the torque, we can change the current also. Starting current can be reduced if resistors are connected. Okay, this is used, torque, speed and current control. So this is a basic slip ring induction motor which employs slip ring and brushes to make connection with the external resistances. Next one is the squirrel cage induction motor. A squirrel cage induction motor, these are its rotor bars. So solid bars are placed over here. And these are short circuited by end rings. These are also made up of copper. These are end rings which is short circuiting the rotor. See, it is short circuiting, that is making a complete path over here. This path is also short circuited, this part is also short circuited. One side is made connection with the means one side forms the rotor and one side is connected to the shaft. This is your shaft. One side is connected to the shaft, this is connected to the load. So this is a schematic of your slip ring induction motor, how it looks like. Now over here, the main difference between a slip ring induction motor and your previous slide. If you see over here, there are external resistors that can be connected by through this brush and slip rings to this rotor. But over here, this rotor conductors over here are fixed. That means rotor resistance over here becomes fixed. We can't connect any additional resistance on. These are fixed. See, no additional, this point is fixed over here and directly connected to the shaft. We can't attach additional resistances over here. So over here, speed becomes constant. Since you can't attach any external resistances, starting current will be very high. You know why starting current is very high in a DC motor. Same over here also. Think it like that. Okay. Starting current will be very high. So, but over here, since the construction is very simple over here, we direct need conductors and short circuit the endpoint. The construction over here is very simple. And over here, you have sliding contacts. That is your slip rings and brushes to make contact with the external resistances. Right. So if there are sliding contacts and brushes, you know there will be sparking, there will be brush drops. So there will be some lesser efficiency over here. Besides, we are connecting resistances. There will be drops. So there will be copper losses. So efficiency will be less. But if you look over here, you can control its speed, you can control its current, you can control its torque also. Later we'll see how torque is dependent upon resistance, how those things are dependent upon resistance. Current is dependent upon resistance, you know. So torque and resistance, speed and resistance, how they are controlled, we'll see according to them. This squirrel cage induction motor is very cheap in construction and very robust. That is very easily made. So next thing what we'll do is look into the differences which I was just telling. I have jotted down some points also. You can look into it. Squirrel cage induction motor and wound rotor induction motor. First one is basis of your construction. It is very simple and rugged, very easy to construct. Just use your rotor, means conductors, short circuit both ends and use it as your rotor. But over here, rotor connection should be taken out to slip rings, then proper connection should be made with brushes, then again contact should be made with the external resistors. So all connections should be made carefully over here. So construction connections become a little bit complex. Cost over here is less, over here is more, as you need so many extra things over here apart from these conductors. Copper loss is small, as you can see, because over here resistance are externally connected. Those resistance will have additional copper loss, so copper loss becomes high. As the losses becomes high, efficiency will be low. In wound rotor induction motor, losses are less, efficiency will be high. Core loss will remain constant because we are using the same core over here. rotor side is changing, so rotor copper loss will increase. And torque can be increased over here by changing the resistances. I'm not going into how to change your torque, but you just remember, by changing your resistances, your torque can be changed, your starting current can be made lower, and your speed control can be obtained, which is not possible in the squirrel cage induction motor. Starting torque is always low over here. You can't do anything with that. Nothing can be done to change it. Starting current is always large because no additional resistances, and speed control, there is no possibility. Okay, 1 second, I'll just check the charts. How are typing the roll number? Okay, thank you. Next slide. Now, we'll jump into how your induction motor rotates, or any machine rotates. All machines have the same principle, except the supply changes. One, it is having a DC supply, one, it is having a AC supply, maybe it is single phase or 3-phase. So now we should understand how the induction motor rotates. Now, if you take a basic example, think about the basic things, how the rotation is brought about. 10 minutes left. If I disconnect my meeting, then you please join it with the same meeting ID. Okay. So these are conductors. See, this is the rotor surface. This is the rotor surface. I have not drawn all the rotor conductors along the surface. As you have seen in the previous slide, if you go to the previous slide, over here, how the rotor conductors are connected, you can see it like this. Okay, so I have drawn it directly over there. See, rotor conductors are placed like this on the surface of the rotor. Over here also there is a end ring. Now I am considering a magnetic field which is in this direction, straight line, perpendicular, and this rotor conductors are carrying some current I, and this has the length of the conductor L. So there will be a force acting on the conductor because there is a magnetic field, and a current carrying conductor is placed in the magnetic field. A force
coming out of the surface.
Coming out of the surface. Think it as it is. Don't means I'm just explaining. I don't need in which direction it will rotate. I'm just for explanation. It is, think it is coming out of the surface. Think this current is in this direction or this direction, whichever you like. There will be a rotation. My main objective is to show tell you that if a magnetic field, if a current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, my conductors will rotate. That is what I wanted to explain. So a magnetic field is there. There is a stator side is producing your magnetic field B. Maybe it is coming in this direction. The current through this conductor, take it outside, take it this side, whichever you want. So if there's a magnetic field and a current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, a force will act upon it. So that is called your Lorentz force. So F equal to BIL. B is your magnetic field. I is your current through the conductor, which is given by capital I. L is your length of the conductor. L is your length of the conductor. F equal to BIL. So force will act upon this conductor. This conductors will rotate in direction you can determine by Fleming's left hand rule. So that's why I have written 3 laws over here: Lorentz force, Fleming's left hand rule, and Faraday's law. Okay. Next, if you come to Faraday's law, how will this current be generated? Obviously, there should be a EMF. If there is when we are giving supply to the 3-phase, then there should be a counter EMF, as we have discussed. In transformer, you have a counter EMF. Over here also, you'll have a counter EMF. If there is a counter EMF, then if you short circuit this point, a voltage is there, a current will flow through this conductor. So by Faraday's law, first EMF E should be there. That will force the current to flow. If a current flows in the conductor and it is placed in the magnetic field, Lorentz force will act upon it and make these conductors rotate, and that direction of rotation will be given by Fleming's left hand rule. B over here is your magnetic field, L is your length of the conductor, V is your relative speed between field and conductors. So this B also rotates, just for now I'm thinking, and think about this. This is static, this B is in this direction and this is rotating. Okay, so the relative speed between this rotating conductor and this static field, so this will always be constant because this is fixed and this is rotating and some speed. Okay, but there will be a constant relative speed. over here. So, but when we give a three-phase supply, this study which I have told you, the constant relative speed, it will be in case of DC machine, because in a DC machine field directions are same. Suppose you have field is always fixed, right? If this is a magnet north south over here, field directions is always fixed. Field directions is always fixed. So field directions is always fixed. B will be fixed. Conductors will rotate, no problem. But
EMF টা যেটা তৈরি হচ্ছে ওটাও তো because of conductors placed in the current magnetic field.
হ্যাঁ 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 না, ইএমএফ টা যেটা তৈরি হচ্ছে, যেহেতু আমি ভি সাপ্লাই দিয়েছি একটা ওয়াইন্ডিং এ, there will be Lenz's law, there will be a opposing effect, that will be the EMF generated. Like in transformer, if I give take a winding and give a supply over here, V supply, current will flow through this, there will be a flux generated. If there is a change in flux, d phi by dt, will get a EMF according to your Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. But if we give a three-phase supply, this B which we have shown over here, I'll take its pointers to arrow. This B which we have shown over here is also rotating in nature. Okay, this B also rotates in nature. Maybe B is sometimes in this direction, B is sometimes in this direction, B is sometimes in this direction. We'll see how it is rotating in nature. So this conductors also rotate, this is also rotating. So there will always be a relative speed. You will get a V always over here. So E will always be there. Since there will be a relative speed, V available, there will always be a value of E, and there will, if there is a EMF E, then there will be a current I and a force will be generated. It will rotate. Conductors will rotate. You can ask question, Kaushal Kumar, you can unmute your mic and ask question, no problem.
Sorry, sir, that was a mistake.
Okay, no problem, no problem. If you have question, you can ask. Unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. I'll just remove this pointer options. Erase all points. This is how the force is created, how the EMF is generated, how direction of rotation is given. Okay, three laws acts over here, and another law, obviously your Lenz's law, fourth law. Next thing, I'm continuing your induction motor rotation. Now I am telling you that the B is rotating in nature. So what is the necessary condition for generating the rotating magnetic field? There are two very necessary conditions for generating the magnetic field. So my first thing, which statement I have given over here, when a three-phase supply is given to the stator of the induction motor, a rotating magnetic field is created. So the field that B is created is rotating in nature. I'm telling you, simply think it is rotating in nature. Okay, how I'll prove it in the next slides. Now, for getting the rotating magnetic field, we need two things. Okay, we need a three-phase system or two-phase system. That is, it should differ by some angle. We don't need a single-phase system. Single-phase system starts at 0 only. There will be no resultant. In a two-phase systems, it gets separated by 90 degrees. We get a resultant. We need a, if you have a three-phase system, all the voltages, currents, EMF, flux, whatever you take, all are separated by 120 degrees. So at each time there will be a resultant of the three fluxes, three currents, three voltages, whichever you want to take. So that resultant will also have some directions, because you know a vector will have a magnitude as well as direction. So that vector will be rotating in nature also. So that's why I'm telling that a three-phase system and a two-phase system will be required for generating a rotating magnetic field. A single-phase system cannot be used to generate rotating magnetic field. And in a three-phase induction motor, we are getting giving a three-phase supply, so there is no problem in that. So first condition is satisfied. Second condition you have to satisfy is that the three field coils, that are the magnets, should be placed 120 degree apart in space. What do I mean by that? This is the diagram for that. All three field coils, this is field coil A, this is field coil B, this is field coil C. Why two coils? Because magnetic poles exist in pair. This will, if this is north, this will be south. If this is north, this will be south. If this is north, this will be south. This black color pole is given supply from A phase. A phase is starting from 0 and this is fixed at 0 point. This is 0 point. In next, after 120 degree, we place another pole. In space also, they should be fixed like this. Okay, this is the space. In space also, they are fixed like this. This is the whole area of the stator. They are placed like this. In the stator, this side will be one pole, this side will be one pole, this side will be one pole. Like this, you have to place the poles in the stator. Now, this is B phase. Gap between this is 120 degree. Again, from B to C, gap is 120 degree. From this side, if you go, between A and C is 120 degree. So, two conditions. One should be your supply should be 120 degree phase apart or 90 degree phase apart, maybe a 3-phase or 2-phase system that we are giving already. To this pole we are giving A phase, to this blue we are giving A phase, B phase supply, to this pole we are giving C plus supply. So supply is already 3-phase. Next, all the poles are placed 120 degree apart. A to B 120 degree, B to C 120 degree, C to B 120 degree. Then only your rotating magnetic field can be generated. These are the two necessary conditions which you have written. Next. You have understood the 2 points. First is 3-phase system is required, and second is all the poles should be placed 120 degree apart, fixed in space. Next. Now, rotating magnetic field. I have given a 3-phase supply. See, first A phase is starting from 0, you know, A phase blue line. It should be V at an angle 0, starting from 0. Okay. B phase at 120 degree apart, from here to here, 120 degree. This is freehand drawing, don't go after the measurements. This is 120 degree apart. Starting from here, goes over here, goes like this. Now, if it starts from here, this gap is how much? 120 degree. So at 90 degree from this point, there will be a peak. So at 90 degree at this point, there will be a peak, then it will go decreasing. That's why from here to here, it is not achieving peak. Because if this is 0 point I am considering, 0 to 90 sine wave appears peak at 90 degree, 90 will be suppose at this point I am having peak, then I am decreasing. Then red color line represents your C phase. See,
আগেরটা আরেকবার বলবেন
হ্যাঁ কোনটা বলো? হ্যাঁ
90 ডিগ্রি পিক যেটা
হ্যাঁ at a sine wave, when you are drawing a sine wave, how you draw your sine wave? 0 from on 0 0 90 peak, then 180 0, right? So at 90 there will be a peak. If this is the origin for the green color waveform, so from this, if I shift on the right hand side 90 degree, I'll get peak from positive peak. And from this side, if I go a 90 degree from here, I'll get negative peak. ঠিক আছে? Correct? বোঝা গেছে? So this is 90 degree negative peak. Then it will decrease.
আমরা প্রত্যেকটা +90 আর -90 তে পিক পাবো।
Yes, yes. +90 peak, then +90 0, then +90 negative peak, then +90 0, then +90 positive peak, +90 0. Normal. Yeah. I have drawn this by triangle method. You just go through in YouTube or one, they have shown you how to draw a triangle. I have drawn a triangle like this first, then joined all the peaks. These triangles I have drawn like this, then I have drawn the peaks like this. This is direct 3-phase drawing. Yeah, so if you observe YouTube and other videos, you can observe how to draw it. I'm not going into detail about that. Okay. See, I have taken some values over here. These points. Okay, these points. Why I have taken? Because this is peak over here, this A peak is peak over here. See, A is blue line, A is peak over here, and all these 2 points, that is B and C, are intersecting over here, that is has the same value. Other points of study can be made by you, no problem, you can make your own study. But I just need to show that my magnetic field is rotating in nature. So I've shown you 3 points. You can take any point along this waveform. So another point I've taken, this red one is peak, that is C is peak, other 2 blue and green is negative half, means intersecting at this point it is half. If you can check, draw it physically on a graph paper, you will see if this is peak, this 2 will be half. Then this is green one is peak, red and blue is negative half. Now I've drawn a dotted line over here. Okay. If you see my phase over here, I'm going to the previous peak. Previous peak once on generation of rotating magnetic field. This is my A phase which goes in this direction. This is my B phase which goes in this direction. This is my C phase which goes in this direction. A, B and C in these directions are positive. If I draw C along this dotted, it will be negative. If I draw B along this dotted, it will be negative. If I draw A along this dotted, this will be negative. A this side, B this side, C this side. These are all my fixed condition of positive A, B and C phases. Now I have taken this over here, A, B, C. Understood? So this is A blue line, B green line, C red line. Now, if you observe at this point, this blue line is which phasor? A, and it is having maximum value positive. Positive A is in which direction? This one. So I have drawn this one, A positive in this direction only. Blue line A, I have drawn in this direction. Next, this at the same point, the green and red color intersects at this point, and it is half of the magnitude. Okay, if this is Vm, this is half of Vm for both. So for B and C, the values of B and C is going in the negative direction. So B and C will be negative and half magnitude. Okay, so C is positive in this direction. C negative will be in this direction. So C negative, C I have drawn in this direction, half of the blue line, half of the magnitude of the blue line. Then this direction green color, because green is also negative, that is B is also negative, B negative in this direction, that is upward, so upward. Now the resultant will be along the maximum one, means positive direction. So this resultant will be along A phase, so I am doing it this color, blue color. I've drawn a circle and drawn in blue color. Next, at this point of study, which is peak? Red. Red means which? C phasor. Peak positive, positive C. So C is positive, so C will be in this direction only. So C is in this direction. Now, at the same point, blue and green, that is A and B, are negative. So if I shift green in the opposite direction, it will go in the top. So green will go in the top, half of the magnitude of this red line. Blue in the opposite direction will go in this direction. So blue in this direction. Again, resultant will go along this red line, which is of maximum magnitude. So this will be in this direction, red line, along the C phasor. Next, third case. Green is peak, that is B is peak, and also positive. B is peak and also positive. You can take the negative peaks at point between this point and study. That you can do as your homework. B is in this direction, positive. So see, B is in this direction, positive. At this point, blue and red is in negative. So blue is A negative means this direction. So A negative means this direction. Red means C is negative at this point. So C negative means in this direction. So in this direction. So the phasor will now be in this direction, green. So the phasor is now in this direction. So when you are giving a three-phase supply, the resultant magnetic field, all currents, voltages, flux, field will also be sinusoidal in nature. So this phasor, this waveform which I have drawn three-phase will be relevant for everything: EMF, voltage, current, flux, whatever I talk. So if flux is there, field will be there, magnetic field. So I'm talking about magnetic field only. So magnetic field will be also rotating in nature. See, at this point it is here, at this point it is here, at this point it is here. So it is rotating in nature. If you plot all these points in between, so this will, suppose your starting point is this one and go to some end point. You will see this blue line shifts, goes in this circle and goes in this direction, goes in this direction. It follows the entire circle. Now, this circle over here is a constant circle, means constant radius circle. Suppose this is 1 centimeter. This phasor length, red color line, green color line, blue color line will be of same phasor length, but rotating in nature. Okay, so today what we have done is I have shown you how rotating magnetic field is generated. If you are giving a three-phase supply, rotating magnetic field will be generated, and why it is rotating in nature you can show in this phasor. Tomorrow what we'll discuss, as I have told you, this circle radius is fixed. That means this length over here, this green line length, this red line length, the radius will be fixed. So that fixed length, how much will be the length of that phasor, we'll study by calculation. It will be 1.5 times of the maximum value. That we have some calculation, we will study. Okay. So up to this, I wanted to tell you, if anybody has any doubt, you can tell me about how your one thing just for confirmation, this B is rotating in nature. So B is rotating in nature. So if B is rotating, this is also rotating in nature. There will be a relative speed V. So there will be a EMF in turns. There will be a current and a force will be acting. So therefore, if force is there, there will be a torque and the conductors will rotate. So this is how your induction motor rotates. If there is no relative speed V, there is also one question that comes: what happens if there is no relative speed, or if this B and this conductor rotates at the same speed? Okay, there will be no relative speed, then V will be 0. Then E will be also 0. If E is 0, there will be no current. If no current, there will be force 0. If force is 0, no torque will be there. No torque, that means conductors will not rotate. And next day
দুটো তো সেম স্পিডে ঘুরতে পারে
না, সেম স্পিডে ঘুরতে পারে না, otherwise there will be no relative speed V.
কেন মানে সেম স্পিডে কেন রোটেট হবে না
এই যে রিলেটিভ স্পিড তাহলে থাকবে না V. If there is
ভাই
no
রিলেটিভ স্পিড মানে কে ডিসাইড করছে
relative speed is decided by your I'll tell you tomorrow. Means actually this is rotating, this B is rotating. This conductors try to catch up with this speed. If I am telling a 1500 rpm,
according to Lenz's law,
according to Lenz's law, this will try to pick up with this speed. But if this speed becomes equal, if theoretically this speed becomes equal, then there will be no relative velocity, hence there will be no EMF, there will be no current. So there will be no force on this conductor and the conductor will come to stop. Okay, there should be a relative speed for EMF to be generated according to Faraday's law. Otherwise, there will not be. That's why in a synchronous motor, I'm telling you this. You have heard about synchronous speed, everyone? Synchronous speed, শুনেছো?
Yes, first year.
Synchronous speed. This magnetic field which I have shown over here today, this moves at synchronous speed. Tomorrow, next day, we will discuss about that. That is 120 F by P. That suppose if it is 4-pole or something like that, it will be 1500 RPM. So this B rotates at 1500 RPM. This rotates, this one rotates at suppose 1480 RPM. The difference between this is given by slip. This is next day's discussion. That is called slip. So you should remember that there should be always a relative speed. Now let Faraday's law কাজ করে।
স্যার এই রোটর কন্ডাক্টর গুলোতে এসি 3 ফেজ সাপ্লাই দেয়া থাকে তো
না, রোটর কন্ডাক্টর না। Don't confuse your synchronous machine with the induction motor. I am giving a supply only to
শুধু স্টেটরে দিচ্ছে
আমি বলছি
সিঙ্গেল এক্সাইটেড তো
স্টেটরে সাপ্লাই দিলাম। I am giving my 3-phase supply to the stator. Current flowing through the stator wires, there will be a magnetic field produced. In that magnetic field, my rotor conductors are placed.
আচ্ছা
Okay.
তো স্টেটর আর রোটরের মধ্যে কোনো কানেকশন থাকে না তো মানে দুটো তো ফ্রি একদম
no connection, free নালে ঘুরবে কি করে? এই দেখো এই স্টেটর, this is my stator, this is my stator. In this air gap over here, there will be a gap between the stator and rotor. If I place a rotor inside, I should place a gap, otherwise I need to rotate na. এই জিনিসটা ভেতরে, this should rotate over here. This is my stator, another circular rotor will be placed over here, but there should be a gap over here. In that gap, the magnetic field is produced. From the stator, the magnetic field flows through the air gap and cuts the rotor conductor. If I take a printer ball pen, rotor conductor is drawn over here. The magnetic field is produced over here, and this cuts the rotor conductor. This passes through the air gap and cuts the rotor conductor. Yes. If you consider a synchronous machine, okay, I'm just telling you one thing. If you consider a synchronous machine, a field is given a DC supply and the rotor is given a AC supply. মনে রাখবে, That's why the rotor can rotate at synchronous speed, because the rotor is directly fed with a three-phase supply, and a three-phase supply produces a rotating magnetic field at synchronous speed. That's why the alternators are called synchronous generators, because they can rotate at synchronous speed, as the rotors are directly given the three-phase supply. But over here supply is given to stator. In that magnetic field my rotor conductors are placed. No supply is given to rotor. So whatever the magnetic field is there, rotating magnetic field is generated only in the stator, and there will be a relative velocity between the magnetic field and the rotor conductors, and that's why an EMF will be generated. Since this path is short circuit, a current will flow, and if a current flows, force will act upon the conductor, therefore it will start rotating. Okay. So next day, Wednesday our first period class, and from next day same timing, follow routine.